There's a player I've been wanting to talk about for quite a minute now, or at least a couple of minutes. Probably the most polarizing prospect, too. You're going to see this guy. Dane Brugler has him as number 3 overall player on his draft big board. And then you got PFF more in the 50s range. It's like all over the spectrum. Where do we put Jalon Walker? Well, I want to talk about him because I really do question where does he go in the draft. He is just such an interesting prospect. When we see the Micah Parsons, you see those type of hybrid linebackers, Frankie Louvu. What kind of player is Jalon Walker? That's what I want to talk about here today. So let's go and get into the film. Pass rusher, number 11, Georgia, extraordinaire, Jalon Walker. What does he bring to the table? The first thing that jumps off to me is his athletic traits. He's oozing with them. He has tremendous range, sideline to sideline, if he is playing off the ball linebacker. And as you're seeing him right now, rushing the passer, he has the twitch, right? He has that ability to shake and bake and to do the things that these elite passers should do. Watch this. Watch the hip flexibility right here to shake this offensive tackle, make him look foolish. He has all those traits that NFL teams are going to love. I also love some of the play strength is, while it's not perfect as an edge setter, I do think he has at least the leg drive to keep things going and to push tackles back with that speed to power. He has excellent speed to power, and he has tremendous pop and on contact, which is something that for a guy his size, I love to see that, because if you're going to be a true edge rusher at the next level and you're going to line up A, B gap, which if you're a team drafting him, I want to see you do that, because that's really where he thrived, a lot at Georgia, as you're seeing him line up there against the A gap, against the center there. And he really makes these guys look foolish because of his switch, but he also has the play strength to go speed to power and hang up in his own if they're running the football. But you see that pop right there on that running back. It makes such a difficult one, and that's a first-round potential running back there. So anyway, going back to some run defense stuff, him as more of a linebacker playing in that role, because some teams are going to play him in that, especially early on in his career. I love his nose for the football. And he is one of the highest motor guys that I'm going to say in this draft class. And there is some edge setting right there versus that Clemson tackle. He has good length, and that's one thing I will say. Now, I thought he was a little slow there to diagnose and read, but in general, made the play, came off of it, and here's him in coverage. This was the one play that I saw in coverage him really read and react and do a good job one-on-one. Just more coming downhill as a linebacker here, but going back to that, he certainly has that nose for the football that you love, and he plays tremendously ferocious as a linebacker. Like when he lays a hit, like he's adding an extra shoulder blade to it. You know what I mean? Like he's going at it. You see him, you know what I'm saying? Like he certainly is not just, oh, I'm going to tackle you kindly to the ground. No, I'm going to ram you down. You know what I'm saying? But he really adds a little bit of ferocity to his game when it comes to tackling and being an enforcer as a linebacker. Now, we're going to go into some weaknesses here in a minute, but here's what I was talking about. This guy, he will go fully. He's off the screen here. He's been off the screen for 5 seconds, but he makes this play. I mean, there's Malachi Starks. There's a lot of good secondary players. Jalon Walker makes that play. He is just such a high motor guy. He flies everywhere to the football. Now, let's go ahead and get into some of those negatives. As I was talking about earlier, his play strength doesn't always show up against the stronger tackles. You go against Alabama. If offensive linemen have counters, then they're going to be able to counter Jalon Walker's first rush. His pass rush moves are very limited. Right now, it's kind of like a speed move to the edge and trying to use that lateral agility. That's really all he has to his repertoire right now. Now, NFL teams are going to get with him and get in a program. They're going to put his tools together. They're going to get him bigger and stronger, all those sort of things. But that is definitely a limiting factor. And then you talk about some of his coverage ability. You say, well, is he a true linebacker? I don't think so, because I don't think his instincts as a true linebacker are there. And you see some of this stuff, whether it's zone coverage, or it's man coverage. He's a little slow at processing at times. He's kind of playing nobody here. And that's another thing. And then lastly, I do think he had a couple of full start I had to point out here. So let's go ahead and summarize everything up. The reason why I call him the most interesting man in the draft, because he's probably the most polarizing guy in terms of how you use this guy. Are you going to use this dude as a full-time edge rusher? Are you transitioning him to linebacker? I see him as a edge rusher at the next level, but there is going to be some time. There's going to be some development with him. I don't think he is a full every down edge rusher. So teams drafting him are going to you have to understand that what you're getting from him early on is going to be probably more of a rotational player as an edge rusher. Maybe plays off the ball linebacker as a run defense guy early on. And, on third downs, you put him off the edge. But I would definitely recommend putting him up in the A and the B gas because he's probably his best film came from those positions. And then you talk about his strengths, though, and the reason why teams are going to draft this guy in the first round, it's because the freakish athletic traits. I'm taking a chance on a guy that moves as well as he moves, as explosive as he is off the line of scrimmage. He's a fantastic athlete. And then you combine that with his speed to power, is going to be really lethal. And even for NFL tackles, it's not going to be, I think NFL tackles will be able to handle some of that, but I do think it's still going to be something that he plays, but he needs to get more counters because NFL tackles will counter that power. So that's why I lean that in, say, you've got to develop that pass rush plan, win with speed to power. If you can set up that offensive tackle where he's uncomfortable because you might be able to beat him with a spin move or with an inside counter or maybe a possible cross chop to the edge, rip, something like that. Like that right now is not really in his game. You didn't really see that the whole time. I thought Notre Dame was his most effective game showing off the pass rush plan, but that is still an area that he really needs to check for me. And that's when we talk about the pass rush in general. There's so much to love with him, traits-wise, athleticism-wise, length-wise, too. For a guy his size, he's got really good length. But it comes down to, is he a day one top-tier pass rusher? He might be more of like a Chop Robinson type early on in his career. Now, with Chop Robinson, he got going as the season progressed. And I think the same could be said about Jalon Walker. So that's kind of where I'm at as a vacuum. A lot of upside as a pass rusher, but he is nowhere near a polished prospect. Not somebody I'm comfortable taking in the top 10 strictly as a pass rusher. Now, if you're talking about him run defense-wise, this is a whole different category because as a linebacker, he's a really good run defender, actually. He's got that hard nose. He really comes downhill and he cements it, and he's not afraid of nothing. He'll take you on and he'll really hit you and thump you. He's a thumper in that style. So I love that. I love his motor. His motor is incredible. You saw him chasing dudes down the field, and he does that on a consistent basis. So the motor skills are there. The ability to come downhill and play and in a vacuum as a spy. He's a really good spy. He's a dangerous spy, actually. So he can hang with those more twitchy, athletic. I mean, no matter what, Lamar Jackson, your Jaden Daniels, those guys are tough to stop. However, I do think within reason, he can hold up to those guys. Now, with that, though, as a true edge setter, somebody early downs is going to, set the tone there. That's not really his game, at least not at this moment. Now, he is tough, and we saw him a couple of times being able to set an edge. So it's not like he can't do it. He has the length, as I talked about earlier, but he's definitely going to have to get stronger. It's going to be like a Nolan Smith scenario where he's going to need a year to really bulk up, get those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, as Lavach Lombardi always says. So let me know what you think. And, last thing I do want to cover here is if he were to be used as a true off-the-ball linebacker, I just don't think that I really wouldn't want to put him there because of his coverage instincts. That's the one knock on his game besides the pass rush plan and the pass rush tools right now that I would say, and why I would rather just develop him as a pass rusher than an off-the-ball linebacker is mainly because I just don't feel like he is comfortable in zone coverage or even super sticky in man coverage. So let me know what your thoughts are on Jalon Walker. I'm comfortable taking him at the back end of the first round. I do think that in this draft too, if you've got a game plan for him, even if you're like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons, sure, I have no problem. The traits are worth it. If you have a plan in place to put him and utilize him in a specific role early on, then yeah, you just got to temper your expectations, what you're going to see out of this guy. I think day one, I think even a guy like Mikael Williams will come into the locker room and be a bigger impact in terms of getting on the field earlier than a guy like Jalon Walker. But I think Walker, his upside as a pass rusher down the line could be just so enticing that you take a chance on him there. I would love to get him, though, at the back end of the first round, early second round. That is, to me, where I would be looking to draft him value-wise in terms of the player that I would think we're getting long-term, future-wise. He's not a perfect prospect, and I really don't think he's a can't-miss prospect. There's a lot of really good athletes out there, so that's another reason why I think he's more of that late first rounder, early second rounder with the traits, with the upside. But there's a lot of development to be had there that still needs to be untapped, needs to be developed. So that's going to do it here for the long-winded answer. Sorry, but I hope you guys have a really cool day. My name is G-Sling. I'm doing my thing, and I'll talk to you soon.